So here we are, the Evolve to Succeed podcast, and the tables have been turned. I'm not sure how much I'm looking forward to this, but it's been suggested that my story should be told, and with our new format, we thought we'd put it out as one of the early episodes. And the individual that is responsible for interviewing me is Mark Cribb. Hello, Mark.
Hello, Warren.
So Mark has the challenge of getting my story from me, the insides, the dirties, everything. Mark, along the way, has actually been a client, a friend, a confidant, somebody I've used as an accountability partner. So actually, he's a good person to enable me to tell my story, perhaps, as it should be told. So without any further ado, I'm going to shut up. I'm going to answer the questions and hand you over to your host for this week's Evolve to Succeed podcast, Mark Cribb.
Wow, look at that. Hey, the tables have been turned. Exciting. I can't believe you're actually going to let me interview you on camera, Warren, and I get to delve and probe all your dirty secrets.
Doesn't mean the episode's going to go out, Mark.
It can still be edited. No. So thank you so much for the opportunity. It's really good to actually have a conversation that we record, because you and I chat quite regularly, but I think it gives an opportunity to really ask some very different questions to the sort of things you might discuss over a coffee and a beer. But actually, I want to start with the podcast, because over 200 episodes, you know, you've maintained this. Won't be surprised, as we'll find out in this conversation, about your sort of dogged determination and your traits to see things through to the end. But what have you learned? Is there anything that surprised you interviewing sort of over 200 local business people? Is there anything that surprised you about the local business community from those conversations that you've had?
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because I've had that honour and that privilege over 200 episodes to have those conversations. And I think one of the things that I probably learn and reflect on is that there is something in everybody's story that is of pure interest, or the thing that enabled them to do what they've done, or they enabled them to drive, enabled them to succeed. It's a sign of resilience they've overcome. And I've always thought it's been quite a privilege, because I get to sit down, have these conversations, and them share their story with me. And people say, well, 200 episodes, you haven't commercialized the podcast, you haven't monetized it. And actually, that's been on purpose, because it's been about finding out about people and their stories. And I think one of the things, perhaps we'll discuss it, the traits that I love the most about doing what I've done is building relationships with people. And the podcast has really just been an extension of that. And I've always said it's a privilege and an honor when we were putting out our weekly episodes, and now fortnightly, but the weekly episodes, to sit down with somebody that I don't always know really well and just find out a bit about them. And there's always a learning in there for me.
Yeah. And it's incredible how diverse a community there is, I think, isn't it? Even on a relatively local level, because most of your stuff is sort of Dorset.
Yeah, I would say 2/3 of them, if not 3/4 of them, have been Dorset-based business individuals.
Amazing. And are there a couple of that sort of stand out? Are there a couple of nuggets where you always say, "Oh, listen to that one. That's a really fascinating story"? Are there two or three that you constantly refer back to?
Yeah, there probably is. There's a few that have inspired me just because of the inspirational nature of their stories. So there's Toby Gutteridge, who's the quadriplegic SBS veteran, and he's an amazing human. His story, when you listen to that and just see the resilience he's gone through, and his reflection on life now is amazing. I think in a similar way, there's obviously Steve Wyatt of Restored Retro, reformed alcoholic and drug addict, lowest of the lows. And his was, I think, one of the first video episodes that we ever put out. Yeah. And it's a really moving story, but again, a story of resilience. Maybe there's a theme here for me. But then you really touch on some of the more local business personalities, some people that we probably know, people like Darren Mooney came on the podcast. I was him. But he told his honest kind of story that it's not always easy in life, in business. And so many of our kind of guests have done that. Helen Stacey was another one, that really came on and just told the story in an honest fashion. So I don't think I've got particular favourite episodes, but there's some themes that kind of come out and resonate with me, Mark.
Well, congratulations on doing so many. Amazing. But today is very much, turn the tables on you. I think, you've been through such an incredible journey of almost, different Warrens, I suppose, after over the last sort of 30 years. Why the motivation now? What's made you decide that, you want to tell your story?
Because the team have told me I've got to.
But in the same way you told me I've got to interview you. So that's perfect. Here we are.
So Amy and David told me to do it. No, really, I think it's about, it feels like I've gone through this journey where I started the business, gone through the growth phase, been a bit roller coaster ride along the way, gone through the exit, and now purely focusing on Evolve as the opportunity. it just feels probably the right, joking aside, it probably feels the right time to tell the story because it feels like a complete story.
It's definitely why I'm so excited to talk to you now. I think it's almost sort of the Warren Unleashed version, basically. He's no longer, because every time we've chatted historically, there's always somebody you've got to be considering on some sort of angle, and that's probably still true to an extent. But you really are, I think, back to being your own man. You're the free Warren, but you've been through so much, particularly in the last few years, that I really want to dive into. That I imagine the Warren of today is almost your guru Munson to a lot of us, Warren. You've had so many conversations, you've been so much through that sales process that I'm excited to dive in a little bit deeper.
Okay.
I'm going to start, if you don't mind. So I think it was Friday the 15th of February 15th of March 24. Pretty much 20 years after you started Inspire, your self-employed journey, and that was the day. That was your last day. Yeah. So I want to know what happened that day. Did you wake up at the normal time? Did you have breakfast with a family? Really, how did it feel to be going into your baby? And I know you'd gone through this sort of transition journey, but that last day, did it feel as you expected? What were the emotions you were going through on your last day there?
It's really interesting. I probably felt a sense of relief and numbness by the time I got to that day. I know that sounds quite cold and callous, but it's not, because I care about the people, care about the clients, and it was a great business to be part of. But I think I'd made the emotional transition sometime before. So the day itself was just a normal day. I think I probably got up and did some form of bike ride, said, goodbye to the kids and have a good day type things, went off school, went off to work, gave Michaela a hug and set off to work. And by about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'd kind of cleared my office. I was done. Everybody else was out at a client entertaining thing. No. So I went home, dropped my car off, and came back for the drinks and party later.
Okay, as long as there was a drinks and party later.
Definitely a drinks and party.
I was about to shed a little tear. I thought of you just walking out with no fireworks, no big banners.
No.
Mr. Munson had gone. So why did you sell it?
I think those that have sold a business would probably resonate with this. For me, I had been on a journey with that business for nearly 20 years, as you've said yourself. And I'd gone through this kind of transition, and I felt like I'd taken it as far as I could take it. So I think I still love the business. I still love the people. I still love the clients. But we got to 40-ish people. We'd grown the business. And the business needed the next injection of rocket fuel. And that's in terms of access to people, resource, expertise, investment in technology. And I just don't think it was within me at that point. And there's a number of reasons for that, and happy to touch on a few of them. I think in part, that's about the fact that Evolve was there in the background. So I was splitting my time between these two businesses. It's like being in two relationships type thing. No, I've never been, Michaela, in two relationships.
Get that in quick.
Yeah. But it was like, there was this kind of, it was like splitting the love. And I think I had to make a decision at that point. If the business needed investment, I'd grown it, with the help of Andrew and Chris as well. And I didn't ever want it to stagnate. And it was feeling like, well, if I wasn't prepared to go again, then I had to find the entity, the people that would go again with it, look after the staff, look after the clients, make the investments, and let there be some form of legacy that office is there, it exists, and ready to move on. And I also think, last year, I suppose I was 48 when I sold the business, knowing there was going to be a period of transition. But I think I also thought, do you know what, I've got something left in me. I want to go again. I don't want this to be the thing that ultimately defines me.
Yeah.
And I want to see what else I've got within me and challenge myself and see what happens, really. And that was that sense of the unknown, and wanted to step off that sense of the unknown.
I think that unknown is something that we're probably going to come back to in this conversation. But the actual person, you advise a lot of people on selling their business, and you sort of help them out along that journey, I guess. And you've done that over many years. How different was it when you were actually going through it yourself? Was it a case like, do you get out a spreadsheet and do a SWOT analysis and a bit of paper, or do you go for a walk on the beach and watch the sunset? And did that journey, did you constantly ebb and flow between, yes, I should sell it, and no, I shouldn't? Or was it just a eureka moment that one day you just said, right, that's it, I'm done? I'd just like to understand how different it was, I suppose, going through it yourself compared to the advice that you give your clients.
I said this early on about when I started Inspire as a business. I became a better advisor having gone through the journey. And it's the same with the exit process. I think sometimes you advise people, you become their confidant, you become their sounding board, and you have these conversations and you walk away thinking, okay, logical things, I think they're going to go left. And, you pick up the phone 24, 48 hours later and they're going to go right. They're not going left, they're going right. And you go, But once you go through these experiences yourself, then you realise the depth of emotion and all of the other things that get taken into consideration. And it's not a logical spreadsheet decision a lot of the time. And it definitely wasn't for me. For me, it was about finding the right fit. So we'd been approached over the years and, even in recent years by a number of different people. Business was an attractive, business to purchase, to acquire. But it felt like Azets were the right choice. And we'd had a couple of conversations with them pre-COVID. And when we made that decision between Andrew, Chris and I, we weren't going to invest and go again. They were the partner. So there wasn't a lot of kind of dilly-dallying around. And I think that's my character as well, is that once I make a decision, there's not a lot of, I'll take time to make it, but once it's considered and it's made, I just want to get on with it. Okay. That's the drive in me that says, okay, make the decision in a considered fashion and then go for it.
So that sounds logical and rational, but let's say, I don't know, 6 weeks later you signed on the dotted line, or all of a sudden you've got a boss. You are, Warren the Maverick who can go off, and you talk about other people go right or go left. You're the king of, everybody says go right, perfect. We go left. How was that when all of a sudden you had somebody that you were accountable for?
Interesting.
And we'll leave it there. Go on, tell us the truth. This is Warren Unleashed. Come on.
Interesting. So I think it was really interesting because I'd had a corporate experience before. And that was one of the reasons that, Inspire came along. So I was probably dreading going into a much larger organization that was PE owned and having that hierarchy above me. And I think for the first 6 to 8 weeks, it took me a while to realize I could still be me in that environment. I think I was still going back to the slightly kind of shy, slightly subservient individual I had been before, back in 99 to 2004, when I'd been in that environment before. And then I realized I could just be me and let my personality flourish and let me, say what I think in the right way. And it was appreciated. And I found that experience completely different. It was still alien because I need to be in control. That's one of the things that definitely is in my DNA. And not being in control and having to report, not having the complete freedom to make decisions was painful for me. But that wasn't the environment I was in. It was just painful because of who I am.
And is that something you would say? Because, I think it's really hard. There'll be a lot of people listening to this, sort of entrepreneurs who consider an exit. And it's quite common, I guess, on exit to have that earn out process. And have you advised people before to go along with that or to avoid it? And as the experience you've had, would you be more confident telling people, no, it's fine, you'll be all right, you can go from employer to employee? Or actually now would you be more kind of inclined to tell people, actually maybe get out for a little bit less but get out quicker?
I think you've got to work out who you are and what you are. I think that's a very broad question, Mark, and I'm not.
But if you can do it, knowing your personality.
But I think I would advise, and I knew this because I'd seen it. I've seen it go right and I've seen it go horribly wrong over the years. So I had the wealth of that experience, and I could see it through the lens of others. So the piece I'd always advise is do what you need to do to realize the right value for you. Don't overcommit for a period that you don't think is sustainable. And once you know what you're going to sign up for, then know what you've got to do to make that work and have the honest conversations before you sign on the dotted line about what the expectations of all are. And I think we did that. Yeah. And I think that was the one thing that enabled me to dig in when I had to, know that I had a defined period, but knowing I had a defined period allowed me to explore the other options that could be available for me too, and I quite enjoyed that.
Yeah, watching from the outside, I remember those first sort of tough few months, I suppose, while you adjusted and got your head around the fact that you could still be you. But actually, it also looked like you almost went through a period in the end where that little bit of you that had been in that sort of previous corporate life almost started to get excited about the bigger sort of play and being involved in a bigger business. Was there an opportunity to stay at Zets, and why didn't you?
So there was a great opportunity to stay, and it was happening around the autumn of last year. Some really interesting conversations with kind of senior management within the Zets that there could be this role for me. They'd probably got to know me and seen the skills and abilities I had. I'd got to know them and knew where I could make a difference. And we were proactively having those discussions. But ultimately, I woke up one morning and, not because I didn't think it was the right place or the right firm, but it just needed that control again kicking in and just saying, do you know what, I haven't. And more importantly for me, Evolve is 5 years old. We're just going through that whole celebration process of being 5 years old as we speak. But it's never had the best of me. It's always been the business that I've sort of run to get something done, develop the IP, deliver the services, and then I've had to go back for a while to what was the crown jewels because that had the value, and it's never had the best of me. And I remember waking up one morning thinking the opportunities at Zets are great. I'm not sure I fit, but it could be interesting to find out. But actually, Evolve's never had the best of me, and I've got to go and give this a go, and I'll kick myself if I don't. And that's why the decision got made. Yeah,
it's really exciting. I'm excited for you to know what you're doing. I've got to ask though, so one of my favorite quotes, and it took me a long time to learn this, a really long time, but complexity is the enemy of execution. One of the things now that constantly going around in my head. What was it in 2018? You were busy with Inspire. It's still a growing business, still lots for you to do. What was going on in your head that made Evolve become a thing, and why did you start it?
Yeah, I think over the years, Inspire was always different. We were never just a firm of accountants and business tax advisors. And you'll recall, I think you spoke at one of the conferences, we'd done things like for 5 years on the trot, we'd run a big conference. 4 of those years was at the BIC with over 220, 250 people attending. We'd started to develop this knowledge base and IP around workbooks and coaching. We definitely worked out that although the accounting business tax advice was great and it really helped our clients, the rocket fuel was when we put clients in the room and let them learn and share from each other. And I was really excited about all of these things we were doing, but it wasn't professional services. And actually we were damaging the brand of Inspire, which at heart, which is core, is a professional services firm. So I felt I had 2 choices. I had to sort of tone down all this other stuff that I could see really working and excited me, turn it down or stop it, or take it out into its complete new entity to allow the professional services firm to live and breathe and be what it is. I remember going to an event and 2 different people not connected with each other came up to me and one went, "Oh, so you're from Inspire, you're that great events business." And then the other came up to me and said, "Oh, you're from Inspire, you're doing all that really exciting new coaching stuff."
Okay.
And that was the moment it was like, actually, I've spent at that point, 15, 16 years developing this business. And if I wasn't careful, I was going to bastardize what it really was.
And were you rational or aware enough at that point to know that you might exit Inspire at some point, and muddying the waters like that would confuse things? Or was it not that rational a process?
So really, I think my subconscious was doing that. I don't think I purposefully did it. I knew they didn't fit together. I knew we had to separate them. They could sit alongside each other as sister businesses, but they needed to be separate. I probably was doing it with a view somehow to thinking, well, maybe one day this one will go and I'll go and do the Evolve thing. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't this big, I'd love to say, no, it's really strategic and I planned it all.
Yeah.
No, I think subconsciously I was there because I was probably starting to get a little tired of the kind of professional services and knew that I probably wasn't going to invest again in that. but it was a subconscious, not a conscious decision.
Well, they say that you can only join the dots looking backwards, but that looks like a big...
That's a great Steve Jobs
Yeah,
quote.
it's brilliant, isn't it? Yeah, but that was one of those, those key moments that now looks like you were just, hyper switched on and rational. And I presume that as soon as you set up Evolve, it went really well and was really easy, and it just found its position perfectly in the market.
If only. I can't think about the amount of times in those early years I say the early years of Evolve, we're only 5 years old, but the first 12, 18 months, we sort of, we've had these conversations, we've pivoted the business, or we've slightly changed the nuance of it. COVID came along, kicked the arse out of it, and I remember thinking, has this business got longevity? Because we were sort of 18 months into 2 years into the business when COVID came along, and it was left with, everybody was furloughed, it was just me and thinking and servicing the clients we had, running the peer groups, doing some coaching, but our income nearly dissipated. And during that period, as I'm sure we all had some dark moments, from a business perspective, as well as nurture and inspire through those difficult times, the focus was one, well, what's Evolve going to look like when we come out the other side? What do I want it to be? And that break gave me the freedom to go, okay, here we are, I know what we do now. We help businesses start, grow and exit. We saw the opportunity because of some of the things we did, that there was government money in terms of business support contracts that we could go and win and then provide fully funded services. So we came out a completely different business, but there were some dark times on that journey.
I really love, and kind of excuse the pun, but the evolution of Evolve over the last couple of years has been brilliant, and to kind of have a ringside seat to see in your sort of thought process and see how you've taken that business. But now that you summarize it with those sort of three key words, so, ignite, thrive, optimize, I think they're a really good way just sort of looking at life. But what do those three words mean to you? How did you end up with that being the key focus for the business?
Yeah. So we, as soon as we sort of realized that we help businesses start, grow and exit, it was kind of like, well, where are the businesses, what's the feeling in those businesses? What's the energy in those businesses at that time? And for startup, where we've all been there, it's that ignite, isn't it? You've got to get that that spark into the business, and that focus, passion and belief, and gain the momentum. There's so many businesses in the world, but let's talk about the UK. In the UK that don't ever get the proper momentum that they need. Maybe it's they haven't got the support, maybe they haven't quite got the right idea, but they didn't, have a network around of people that can support, they didn't go on the right kind of program. So that ignite just feels the right word to give that startup the energy it needs to gain momentum and increase its chances of success. And then around thrive, I think that's my that would probably be the word that I'd use to sum up Inspire in its heyday. That actually it felt like we were thriving. It felt like we had momentum. It felt like I had the team on board with me. And again, so many businesses perhaps, hit a brick wall, get stuck, get to that plateau and can't grow again. So what we wanted to do was develop our services to help those businesses that are stuck, hit the brick wall, plateaued, continue their momentum. And then Optimise, I think, is nearly the word I'm most passionate about, because although my story of exit's been one of a trade sale, I don't think that should be everybody's journey. Some people want to create an income for life. Some people want to hand the business to the next generation because it's a family business. Some people are really passionate about the senior team they have and want the business to go through some form of longer term management buyout. And I think there's too many advisors that go out there and go beat the drum and go, everybody's going to build this business and everybody's going to exit and everybody's going to get the pound notes. And that's not everybody's motivation in business. And even some of the episodes that we've had on the Evolve to Succeed podcast will tell you that. So, but it is about optimizing, isn't it? Whatever you want to do, you've got to optimize that last few years. And that's where we come in, really, is, there's people that might help you do the trade sale, but we can optimize your thought process, your decision making, and ensure that you fulfill those last 3 to 5 years in the business properly to get the whatever that exit mechanism may be for you right.
I think it's great, and I think you sort of as an entrepreneur who's been on a journey over 2 or 3 decades, I suppose, I probably enjoy different stages of that at different times, but probably don't want to necessarily go through all of those stages again. So in the early days, that ignite period is brilliant, and you're so excited, you're so passionate, you can work 100 hours a week.
Yeah,
you don't
do
need to
whatever
sleep.
it takes.
Whatever it takes. You're scared, you've burnt the boats, you're going to lose everything if it doesn't work out. Yeah. And then the thrive is great at the time. It's a real buzz. You go through some challenges, and I'm going to come to some of yours in a minute. And then ultimately, you get maybe a little bit more knackered and a little bit more,
more jaded.
Can we just optimize what we've done? Can we just take all of that, not do it again, but can we just optimize that and go forward? And I want to look a little bit at that sort of through your journey, I suppose. And particularly, so let's start at the beginning. Let's start at that ignite stage. I said before about the fact that everybody says to you, go right, and you go left. What is it? Have you thought about, and you must have been asked this question before, but what makes you so driven and so ambitious and so that dogged determination that whatever it takes, you'll see it through?
Yeah, I think it goes right back to, I left school, I say at 15, but I was just about to turn 16, barely with 5 GCSEs. And I did that. And I'd come from a loving family, and mum and dad were great, had a wonderful childhood. But dad, this was 1989, UK was a deep recession. Some of our listeners will remember those late 80s, early 90s. He had lost his job, couldn't find another job. Home was slightly torrid as a result. And I knew that I could do something and I could become independent. I mean, school never quite gone. But so I think it came from seeing that situation of having this childhood, that was full of love and joy, and it nearly being ripped away. And I think deep down, that's what drives me, is that I wanted to create this sense of security, and this probably where's this sense of control comes from, that nobody was ever going to be able to do that to me. And I think, that's not unusual. Again, sense of adversity or challenge defines us.
Definitely.
And I think my mum and dad would always say I was a very independent child. And I think that sense of independence I always had. Perhaps they brought me up to be. But that sense of going through a critical time in my life, this challenge, and coming out the other side going, do you know what? It's me now. And I need to take control of my own life, my own destiny. That's a big word at 15, 16, isn't it? But I need to take control of my life and become independent, not be a burden, and off we went. And I was good at maths and art. So, but leaving school at 16, I wanted to be a photographer. But I was good at maths, got a job as a YTS student in a firm of accountants, and actually soon learned that I was good at it. That actually, it wasn't education that I didn't like. It was that I needed to find the thing that engaged me and the purpose of education. Went on and qualified, but was by that time already enjoying from very early on the relationships with people. So for me, that then, the story's the story, isn't it? But it was always started to be about the people.
Okay. So you ended up going through the sort of apprenticeship route. You got into the sort of accountancy, tax advisory sort of stuff, ended up at a big corporate firm. What did you like about that? Because this was this ignition point, wasn't it? You didn't, although you ended up leaving that because you sort of lost the love of it, but actually it was igniting something in you that you really enjoyed. What was it about that you liked?
I think I would always say I couldn't have done what I've done and couldn't have achieved what I achieved if I hadn't spent the last post-qualification as an accountant tax advisor. I hadn't spent 5 years in a very large international corporate partnership. But I think it gave me the other side of the world. It seemed like a place where security was there. It seemed like a place where I learned a lot in those 5 years. I think it was all of those kind of things. But ultimately, I look back at it and I didn't have the inner confidence, perhaps because of that, leaving school when I did and all of those things, to want to be in that environment. And I wanted that sense of control. And for a long time, and it's interesting to have gone through the recent Azets journey, and it's changed my perspective on this. A long time I carried a chip on my shoulder about big corporates. But what I realise now, that just wasn't the environment for me at the time, and I had to go and do my own thing. I had to be independent. Just turning 30, I got offered the opportunity of, partnership within that large firm. But it wasn't going to be for me because I realised it was just a job and I needed something more than a job. I needed this thing that I really believed in. And it was about the people again. Treating our clients and our team as individuals was one of the key motivators, because I couldn't see that happening within this big environment.
Interesting. Because at that point, presumably, all the grown-ups that you knew were going, okay, you're only 30, you're getting offered a partnership in a really big firm, this is your really good salary, this is your pension, this is your life sorted out. At that point, did you already know that you were going to go off and set up something independent and Inspire? And how much of the motivation was, I want to go off and do my own business, or how much of it was this imposter syndrome that you were suffering from a little bit, as in, was that the right place for you?
Wow. I think the imposter syndrome was a big part. Was that, I hadn't gone to Oxford, Cambridge, big university. I didn't have a degree. I didn't think I fitted. I didn't think I could be myself. Again, I now know how wrong I was. But I probably didn't value myself in that imposter syndrome piece around that. And I also think I thought it's what I wanted. So, and I've probably been caught out a few times with this, is that having the drive and the determination is great, but sometimes you don't look around you and you don't stop and think, is this the right thing? So I, was absolutely, crusading towards wanting to be a partner in this firm. And it was only when that opportunity was going to present itself that I looked around and went, shit, this isn't what I want at all. This isn't me. This isn't an environment for me. And, I had to then think, well, what's next? And for me, it was a great place. It was a great firm. And if I wasn't going to be a partner there with all the rewards and all the security and all of the things that it could have bought for it, it was always going to be just go do your own thing.
So did you know the day you handed your notice in, did you know you were going to set up your own company?
Yeah.
It was already in the plan?
That was always the intention.
Okay. Because it was quite a tight time frame then, wasn't it, between leaving that and opening Inspire?
Yeah.
What did you miss? So you opened Inspire. What did you miss the most about your corporate days in those first sort of 6 to 12 months when you opened on your own?
Yeah, I often say I started the business with me, a laptop, phone and a desk, and a serviced office in the Ferndown Industrial Estate. I missed the people. It was a very lonely place. I can remember sitting there at this little desk in this little cupboard of a room, because that's all it was. It's all it was, all I could afford, and the phone not ringing, and no emails coming through, and no real work to do. I'm starting to feel a little bit sorry for myself, and I can still remember it to this day. It was because I started the business in July. It was a sunny day, and I was like, well, I could go home now, couldn't I? It's nice and sunny. Go out, I'm doing a bit of dinghy sailing time. I could go sailing, I could do that. And I remember sitting there going, no, buckle down, get on with it, pick up the phone, make something happen. And I think that was that T-junction, and that just this kind of, right, no, this is what you want to do, get on and do it, make it happen, and, push forward.
How much of a cushion did you have at that point if it didn't work? Had you burnt your bridges?
Everybody says there was risk involved. There was no flaming risk at all. I don't think I took a risk to start the business because I'd gone an income. Michaela had a great job at the time. At the time, we didn't have any kids, although she ultimately was pregnant when I handed my notice in. Little did we know. And the opportunity was always there to go back, cap in hand. And I do think some of the partners, some of the people in that big firm thought, well, he's just got to get this out of his system, let him blow it through, let him come back with his tail between his legs, and off we go. Now, clearly that was never going to happen. Too proud to do that. But there was no real risk, Michaela and I, there's always income, isn't there? There's always something you can do. And I admire people that start a business that have to inject that big capital sum to do it and take risk and put their houses on the line. I've never had to do that. Evolve's been slightly different because we've had to develop the IP and we've had to build the business and build the product before we could go to market with it. But even still, it's a service business. Okay. So there was no real risk, is your answer. A very quick break from this week's episode, which I hope you're enjoying. If you are enjoying, please remember, do help us and help yourself to make sure you don't miss an episode by subscribing and reviewing the episode. So that's it. Short interlude from me. Let's get back to the conversation.
you've been ignited now. You've had all of that learning.
Knighted or ignited?
Have you been knighted? Is that what happened yet?
Unfortunately not.
It can't be long. Once they hear this conversation, I'm sure it's going to happen. So now you're moving into the Thrive bit, and probably the bit of the story that I guess I know a little bit more about, but this real sort of this real growth and this real adventure that you went on. How different when you look back and you think of Warren Munson at 30 and Warren Munson at 50, and you know what you've been through in those 20 years. How different is the actual human being? That sort of imposter syndrome, maybe not sure of his place, not sure what you want to work out. You went through that period of Thrive. How different is 50-year-old Warren to 30-year-old Warren, do you think?
I'm not sure there's... Fundamentally, what's in here is in here, isn't it? What's in the heart, the personality's there, the energy's the same. I think what's changed over those 20 years, and it's with the help of some others, including people like Becky Holston and Mike Bevis, who was a mentor and was our non-exec, and people like you and others in the business community. I've kind of got that inner confidence now that was always there to accept who I am and be me, and just get rid of that chip on the shoulder, and probably learn a lot about what my strengths and weaknesses are, and make sure I'm playing to my strengths and that others around me cover the weaknesses. I think that's the big thing. I think in here and emotionally, I don't think I'm any different. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm passionate. I like to bring energy to things. I don't think that's changed. I think that self-awareness and self-acceptance has changed, and that's a great thing to have, Mark.
100%. And that 30-year-old Warren, with all of the plans and dreams that he had for the business at that point, if he looked ahead those sort of 20 years and seen you exit 20 years later, any surprises in that? Is that how you thought it would pan out? Did Inspire end up very different to how you thought it would be at day one?
This is funny. It's a funny question, and I chuckle because in the last week I was clearing out my desk and my cupboards, and you can imagine after 20 years there's lots of clutter, I'll call it, around me, and I found the original business plan. Which had been hidden in a box somewhere, and I nearly shed a tear because it did talk about a business that would grow, that would do a lot of the things that we did. The niche and the focus we had was in there that we stayed true to on the whole, and it did talk about building something towards exit.
Okay.
So for me, it was always about...
So you are a genius, really.
Yeah.
There's always been a plan.
But for me, it's about the business, professional services in particular, creates a great lifestyle and a great income. And you can do that relatively quickly. If you're good at what you do, people pay for your services, it generates income. But it's very unusual to generate capital value out of that type of business. And I always wanted to buck the trend and do something different. I thought, well, the income would be great, but I want to build a business that has this value. Because if I build a business with value, then it's got great people, great services, it delivers client delight, it's developed a brand, it's got a presence in a market that somebody wants to acquire. So for me, it was a bit about the financial reward, but actually, building a business that somebody wants to acquire is just about building a great frigging business that, people would aspire to own. And so that was the motivation, really.
Okay. 20 years, long time, lots of changes, lots of different periods. What was your favourite period, your favourite time period of running that business?
I'd say there's two periods. I'd say year one, end of year one, we'd got to 4 people. Great little team. Everybody's everybody's aligned. I'm close to everybody. Everybody's motivated. We're having fun. We're growing. The reality of life is coming through. Alex, my eldest daughter, had been born. It was just a good time in life, really. It was kind of a buzz and an energy, and there wasn't too much red tape, and there wasn't too much of HR and all of those other things that come when you grow the business. And then the second period of time would be 2015 to about 2018. We'd lost our way a little bit in sort of 2012 to 14. I made the realization and wanted to make the business great again. God, I sound like Donald Trump. But I wanted to make the business what I knew it could be and what it had been previously. And I had this desire and a real belief in the business to make it what it should be, and put my heart and soul into it. And with others around me, and with the great team that we had, we really gained momentum and really did some great stuff in those years. So they'll be my two periods.
Okay. So, obvious follow-up question, and you alluded to it then. What was the worst bit?
10 years into the journey, 2014. God, I'm going to shed a tear if I'm not careful. So we had built a business and it was great. 10 years into the journey. And I'll come back to explain why, but I remember sitting in a pub with Mike Bevis, who'd just become our non-exec. And he said, "This is great. You're 10 years in. Look at what you're doing. Look at the results. Look at the data." And I was like, "Yeah, no, this is terrible, Mike. I feel like I'm becoming the man I didn't want to become when I left that firm. And actually, I've got to do something about it. I feel like if we just continue on this trajectory, I just build this mammoth business that doesn't care about its people, doesn't care about its clients, and becomes corporate-esque." And that felt like the journey we're on. I also remember the other part of it was and many people have heard me say this, but the night before we did a really big 10th birthday bash at the O2 in Boscombe, a big black tie event. You were there.
I was. It was an amazing event, actually. And I can't remember if I knew at the time what you were going through, if I found out shortly afterwards. But, well done that you pulled off what you pulled off.
Yeah.
But carry on with the story.
Yeah. So I remember, and honestly, the night before, turning to Michaela, with Michaela probably fretting what she was going to wear or whatever, and we're having a conversation about it, and Michaela saying, like, "Isn't this exciting? Isn't it going to be a great night?" And I said to her, "Yeah, it'll be a great night, but all I really want to do is get on that stage and go, 'Thank you, everybody. It's been a great 10 years, but that's the end of Inspire. That's the end of the story. Thank you.'" And that's how I felt inside. It was this real deep low, and I'd lost some of the love for the business. And I'll answer the question why, because I think I'd started to believe my own hype. I'd gone through this period. At that point, I'd realised what I'd started to do. But in the couple of years before, I started to believe in my own hype. I started to want to enjoy the financial rewards. I had become distracted by new shiny things, new opportunities, including, at one point going to China and looking at modular housing in China. Where's the experience?
You've always been passionate about that, Warren, to be honest.
So, and it was with a good friend and an experience. But why was I doing that when I had this great business and I was just distracted from it? And because I was behaving in that way, then the team weren't engaged in the same way. The team didn't believe, that piece around how do we deliver client delight wasn't there. There was none of my passion was in that business. It was elsewhere. And it was only when I realised that, which was inevitably part of the evening when we celebrated our 10th anniversary, when I saw some of the great things we're doing, that actually it wasn't really the business was in a bad place. It was just I was in a bad place. And I had to go and do something about it, which is what we did.
And it's really unusual, because knowing you only ever really see sort of chipper, upbeat, motivated, rational. It's very hard to imagine you, with that kind of the mental trauma. Did that give you an insight into a side of yourself that you'd not really seen before, how you could end up being on, for you, a period of negativity?
I think, and this will surprise you, I think I have a personality where I can go to quite a dark place quite quickly, and I don't let the outside world see that. But there was definitely two sides to it, and I don't think you can have the energy and the passion and the positivity in you without there being a slight kind of dark reflective side. And I spend a lot of time sometimes on my own just reflecting on that, and I've learned to cope with it. But I think there is a dark side to me. I just don't let the world see it.
Okay. Something therefore that often rears its head, or you now have the strategies and the sort of confidence to sort of prevent, I suppose, rather than react to, but prevent? Are there certain things you do to keep that at bay?
I think, I suppose it was part of the strategies post 2014 is trusting in others, sharing in others. For me, simple stuff like going for a walk, in particular going on my bike. I quite happily cycle 50 to 100 miles on my own. I've realised I need some time and space to work things out. But yeah, the strategies are there. I suppose as you grow up and you kind of realise who you are, it's the 30 to 50 thing again, isn't it? You realise who you are. You realise that actually that's just part of you, and it adds some strength as well, because it makes you more reflective. But you've got to learn to cope with it. And again, it's one of those things in life, so many people say it, isn't it? Us as human beings, whether you're male or female, you've got to have people around you that you can talk to. And I probably, never for a long time found the people to talk to about it. And when you do, you kind of accept it, breathe into it, and see some of the strength in it, and ensure that you catch yourself at the right time.
Okay. I know you see everything as a sort of, a learning opportunity and no regrets and all that kind of stuff. But would there be one mistake that you say you made in that Inspire journey that if you really could go back and change it, is there one thing you did that you would undo?
I would have not let myself get distracted in that 2012 to 2014 period, because we had fucking great business, and I was the one that nearly made it a mediocre and average business, and I was the leader of that business. It was my business, and I nearly fucked it up. So, and I probably put some people around me through some difficult, challenging times, and although I would say no regrets, and I've gone through some great learning as a result, and I don't think I'd be here I am today, and I don't think would have gone on the journey we'd have been if I hadn't gone through that. I do regret putting some people that I care about and who'd been passionate about the business through some form of angst and trauma.
So as an outsider, I can now see, the changed Warren, I suppose. And if I really thought about it and look back, maybe like you say, there was a little bit of that arrogance, that sort of overconfidence about what you're delivering, the big party, which was really impressive. I remember the videography and stuff. It was like an Oscars ceremony. Exactly. It was awesome. So I'm actually really pleased that you did get that egotistical, you made it so epic. So it was great. But now that really has, this is what I said earlier, I think, now it's about Optimise. You've been through so much now. You've become Guru Munson, everybody knows. If you've got a question, it's like, ask Warren. You've been through so many of those experiences, I think, haven't you? Does it feel like you've now, because you did turn the business around, you made it phenomenally successful, all of your clients fell back in love with you, your team fell back in love with you, and in fact, I think it became really important to you that when you did do that sale process, a key part of that for you, I think, was making sure that it did get the right custodianship and all those people who'd looked after you and stood by you through those challenging periods. Am I right in saying that a key motivator was to make sure that that they were well looked after by whoever came in next?
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely people and organisations that would have paid more for the business than we received. I'm happy with what we received. It was a fair deal, but it was definitely not all about the money. There is this passion in our clients and on our team to get the right fit and to be with a business that had an alignment in terms of what they wanted to do and how they wanted to serve clients. So for me, I spit back this Optimise. What did it mean to me? It meant to me that actually the people, both our clients and our team, had to be looked after, and there was going to be some legacy around that office and that offering, rather than it just be who's got the biggest check.
Okay. So a lot of people now, given the opportunity for the sale, you could have cleared your diary, cleared your decks. All right, you started, Evolve arguably a little bit earlier. But I know how genuinely excited you are. And I think it's because of all of that knowledge and all of that experience that you've been through. But how genuinely excited you are now to help other people in business. And again, you don't even mind, although you're probably, your magic sauce is probably at that Optimise, thinking about exit because you've had so much experience, but you get equally excited about the new entrepreneur, week 4 of his business. Why is it that you're going again?
This is going to sound really, I don't know, corny really. I believe in people and I believe in human nature, and I believe that actually the thing that gives me joy is helping people. And I've got a wealth of knowledge and experience and a passion. And through my journey, and in particular, though, it's not just my journey, over 25 years, seeing other business owners, do things well, make some mistakes. I think, whether it is in that startup phase or that exit phase or somewhere in between the two, there's some shared experiences that can help people. And I think that passion to help people and be around people and be human is what gives me that drive. And I think the other thing is, I think I can see it being done differently. So there is other firms of accountants that will give that sense of advisory. There's business coaches and gurus out there. And there's a whole wealth of different businesses that will do it, but nobody, I think, is doing it in the way in which we're doing it and in the unique way. And I'm absolutely equally excited about creating a new business in a new space that does things differently. Mm. I remember one of the first taglines, and I can't use it for a role because that'd be the wrong thing to do, but one of the first taglines for Inspire was passionate about being different. And I absolutely think that's in the back of my head. It's not a tagline, it's just a mantra. It's how we're doing it. Can we do it differently? How can we support business owners and the businesses and the people within them? And how could we be different in doing that? And I think that's what just gets me up, puts a smile on my face, gives me energy, Mark.
Mm-hmm. I reckon if everybody had said to you, right, you need to take some time off now, Warren, and go and chill out and buy yourself a boat, and then you would definitely have done the opposite anyway. So there'd be no point telling you.
I tried that. I took 7 weeks off last summer, didn't
7 weeks. Well 7
done. Weeks. And again, thanks to Azets and giving me that opportunity just to breathe and find some space, and there's some other reasons for it. But by the end of the 7 weeks, it was great. Loved spending time with Michaela and the girls, but that wasn't reality at that point. I want to have better balance. I talk about it. I want to be more present when I'm around the people I love, friends, family, and doing the other things in life I love to do. But I couldn't see myself just stopping.
Yeah. But now you're optimizing, and there's been periods in your history, we talked about those dark times, but also just the times were exciting and the times you were helping close deals and help other business people. It is all encompassing. You can't be sat at home, with the family around the dinner table and actually be completely present. It would just be, really abnormal. Now you have got the opportunity to not have to keep your foot, quite so flat out, and potentially to maybe cherry pick or just decide what you want to do a little bit more. Do you think you will? Do you think you've learned enough? Do you think you're different enough to maybe have slightly more of a balance over the next few years? Hopefully Michaela's not listening, just in case.
Yeah. Yes, the answer is clearly yes, because there's no point in going through that journey and creating some sense of security and not getting the benefit of it. I talked about that as the driver, the motivator, and still need to work, still want to go again, still have this hunger and desire, but there is some sense of security now, clearly having gone through that process. It would be foolish just to go at it like 100 miles an hour again. I want to be able to smell the coffee and smell the flowers and do all of the things in life, but and there is other challenges. Others know that Michaela isn't well, and I want to spend time with her. That's really important to me, and help her on her journey and whatever that may be. And I've got 2 kids that are 14 and 19, and actually Michaela's done a great job at bringing them up. They're 2 wonderful young ladies, but I want to spend more time around them as well, So I think there is a different perspective that I have that comes from having created some of that security, and I don't want to waste that opportunity, Mark.
Mm. Mentioning Alex and Savannah, your daughters, I think a lot of entrepreneurs grapple with the, how much of a safety net, how much do you support them, how much do you create opportunity, and how much do they need to sort of go out into the real world and find their own sort of opportunities? How do you advise, with everything that you've learned, with all the interviews you do, with all the experiences you've had, what careers advice do you give your kids now? Is it a case of, go off and be happy and dance your way around Ibiza and travel for 5 years? Or is it you could get a really interesting corporate job if you found the right apprenticeship and degree?
I think it's about finding the right
Is your opinion irrelevant anyway, to be fair?
Yeah, they're 2 teenage girls. It's pretty irrelevant.
Just thinking my daughter would be like, I'm the last person she listens to.
I remember when they were young and somebody asked me a similar question, and it became the mantra that it still is. Now, I do talk to them about it, is that I don't want to dictate what they want to do. They're independent. They're their own people. They've got to find their own way in life. Hopefully we've given them a good start and a good kind of family background and some values to base their life upon. But it's their life. But I remember saying when somebody asked me that similar question was, I just want them to have the opportunity to do what they want to do in life. And if they have the opportunity to do what they want to do in life, as long as they're being the best that they can be at whatever that is, that's good with me. And, I still, have that mantra. And, Alex, bless her, got great A-level grades. She got 2 A's and a B. She went off to uni and realised uni wasn't her. And I was really proud of the fact that she could come home, she could talk to Michaela and I and talk about it, and we were supportive. And it was like, well, what do you want to do? We're not going to dictate. What do you want to do? And inevitably, she's decided that uni isn't for her. She doesn't want to get herself into debt. She doesn't know what she'd do with the degree at the end. And she's gone off to be a trainee estate agent. And she's loving it, and she's topping sales charts, and she's doing some great things. And we've got our Alex back, and she's got a smile on her face and an energy about her. And that probably hit home that wasn't just a mantra. That was a kind of principle. And, supporting her through that period in her life made me realise that it's true. I just want them to find something that makes them happy, that they want to do. And as long as they're being the best they can be at doing that, that's good enough for me, Mark.
I told you, Guru Munson, isn't it? Look at this, he's optimising. And actually, just while we're touching on family, and these are just personal questions now, obviously, so because you're a guru, you and Michaela have actually worked in the business together most of that journey as well. That's really unusual that a husband and wife team would also work side by side. It can be hard enough to live with your partner sometimes, let alone work with them. What's the secret? How have you managed to make that work over so many years?
Distance.
Just gonna take notes.
Distance. Michaela had a great skill set that she could bring into the business, but I definitely wasn't going to be a line manager. I wasn't going to micromanage her. She created her own space within the business. She'd had a successful career. We needed somebody that would come in and help, run some of the internal functions within the business, and she came in and did that. And she reported in, for the latter period of time to Andrew. She had her own space. When we worked together, we definitely clashed. She was helping me do something this morning, and it was like, shall I go now? Because she's a formidable lady, bless her. And so I would say joking aside, creating responsibilities, giving Michaela the space to thrive and be who she wanted to be within the business, but definitely not have her reporting to me. And we were on 2 different sides of the business, so that could happen. Perfect. And she did a great job.
Yeah, she's a good lady. Definitely not reporting to you. I can see how that would be. Just the words. Report to me. What time shall I report to you, Mr. Munson? That's just definitely not going to happen, isn't it? So, I'm really excited. I genuinely think that you are in this period of optimization. I think you're one of your superpowers is building a lovely team of people. You've got such an amazing team that you've started to build at Evolve. Genuinely just, I always think if they're the sort of human beings that you could equally come to and ask for some advice, or just sit down and have a glass of wine or a beer and a bit of a laugh with and chat about family as much as you could about work. That's really exciting. I think you've got the concept for the business. You know where you can help really at any point of that business journey. So, drawing to a close, how do you see this panning out? What's the future? What's going to happen over the next sort of 4 or 5 years, I suppose? How do you see that working out? Predominantly for Evolve, but also a little bit for Mr. Munson.
Yeah, well, I think I say from an Evolve perspective, the team are great. Amy, David, Nat, Michaela does some stuff with some of our clients within that business as well. And it's a great place to be and a great feeling. And I sent them a message after Thursday night when we did the sort of 5th birthday celebrations, was that just love being part of this team. Thank you for everything you did last night. So that means a lot to me. So I think continuing to ensure that we build a team in the right way that can support our clients. And we are, as a business, I would say we are out of that Ignite stage. It's been difficult at times. Sometimes I didn't think we'd get out of that Ignite start phase, but we're definitely in the growth phase ourselves. And there's some really interesting kind of opportunities. And there is 2 or 3 directions of travel we could go to put some growth behind it as a business. actually, for me, I've made that decision that I'm not going to force it. I'm just going to let a little bit of the space I've created for myself, because I've been frantic for the last 5 years, running between the two businesses, not having the time to stop and think, that I'm actually enjoying that time to stop and think and let my subconscious brain do some work for a change. But I know what the options are. I know what they look like. We will grow that business, how we grow that business, and how we use that term I've used throughout this conversation, put some rocket fuel behind it, is going to be interesting. And, listeners, watch this space.
And how much do you enjoy having to answer the questions rather than asking the questions, Warren?
I've hated it.
Oh, it's been so much
the control freak in me. It's just like,
well done for actually not just calling the interview to a halt every minute and going, no, you need to ask that question again, which I will bring to. Is there a question that I should have asked you that I didn't?
No, I don't think there is. You've done an amazing
you'll just
job.
say you're so nice. Yeah.
You've done an amazing job.
Well, look, it's a genuine privilege to call you a friend and to follow this journey and to work with you for the last 20, 30 years, whatever it is, feels longer. So best of luck with Evolve. I'm so excited to see the future, and thanks for answering all the questions and being so well behaved.
Thank you, Mark. It's been a pleasure. So that was an experience, listeners, wasn't it? I hope you've enjoyed that conversation. Hopefully you've gained a little bit of an insight into me, what makes me tick. Mark did a great job of that interview. Actually did thoroughly enjoy the conversation. It was nice to share some elements of my story I hadn't told before. So you might think about, what is this lovely setting that we have? Well, it is actually Mark's wonderful restaurant in Bournemouth, Urban Garden. Do take a look. It's a great restaurant, a place that myself, Michaela, and the girls love to come at the weekends and some evenings. So yeah, do look it up, please. Help support Mark and all that he is doing. And of course, if you're really interested in what we're doing at Evolve, go to evolveadvisory.co.uk. And remember, if you're enjoying the podcast, do help us by rating and subscribing on whatever your favourite channel is. Thank you.